everyone, and welcome to Gruff Talk, where each week we take a deep dive into all the ways we can feel better, look better, live better, and age better. Today, my guest is Dr. Breno Diniz, the lead author of an important new study that shows how depression later in life can speed up aging. I'm your host, Barbara Hannah Grufferman. One of the things that fills me with joy is when I stumble upon a new piece of research that I know will help shed more light on the whole aging process. And today's guest is behind an incredible new study that links depression and aging. We all know that depression can be debilitating, but thanks to my guest and his team of researchers, we now also know that depression, especially later in life, can actually accelerate biological aging. Yes, you actually will speed up aging, and it can contribute to poor brain and heart health. Dr. Denise is an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry and UConn Center on Aging at the University of Connecticut Health Center. He has published over 140 articles in peer-reviewed journals like Nature Mental Health, JAMA, Alzheimer's and Dementia, and the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry. I'm really looking forward to sharing this episode with you because I learned so much, and I know you will too. Stay tuned. Welcome to Gruff Talk, Doctor. Let's see if I say it right, too. I know there's you were telling me before we started recording, there's a certain sound in Portuguese that I just am not getting. I'm saying Denise, but it's not. It's let's see if I get it. Denise?
Yeah, you almost get very close, When you didn't think about it, you got it, as close as,
well,
as
welcome.
possible. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. So you're the lead author of a new study that just came out. I read about it in many, many places last week that seems to show that older adults with depression are aging faster, like biologically aging faster than their peers who do not have depression. How did you conduct this study? And what are some of the most important highlights that you can share?
Sure. We know for a long time now that depression across the lifespan is not only on older adults. It's associated with things like higher risk of death. And we're not talking about death due to suicide, okay? Or they have higher risks of diseases that are commonly observed during aging, like cardiovascular diseases, dementia, stroke. So the biggest question for me and my group, it's what is going on in your body that can make someone with depression, especially if they are older, more vulnerable to these age-related diseases and health outcomes. So that's where we started investigating one biological concept that was called cellular senescence. That is one of the underlying mechanisms of aging, how we age as a whole body. And part of what the senescent cells starts to do and how they work in our body. And we know how they are working based on what we call the senescent associated secretory phenotype. There is a set of proteins that every cell secretes, but the senescent cells secrete in a more intensity. And they are an indicator of biological aging, an indicator of general biological health, if I can say. So we started, it's been for the past maybe 5 years that our group started investigating the SASP in different conditions, including depression and Alzheimer's disease, more specifically. And we culminated with this report where this SASP index, that it's a marker of faster aging, it's far higher in depression compared to those non-depressed, and it's associated with some features of aging itself, like more medical issues, worse cardiovascular health, worse cognition. So it is like a situation where we didn't not only we had the clinical evidence of an accelerated aging, but also what is underlying this process, what is behind, but in our body that we don't see that is causing that.
And the study also showed that, and you already mentioned it, that older people with depression had worse cardiovascular health and brain health. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Is that because of the senescent cells? What's the connection?
So that's one of our hypotheses. For a long time, we really don't know. We didn't know what was going on. We had some hypotheses like, is it inflammation? Is it oxidative stress? Is it just because we grow old? But we didn't have a clear picture of what was going on. And that's exactly where this work fills in this gap of information, where we show, okay, it's not only inflammation, it's not only oxidative stress, but it's a process that is broader than all of this and involves all of these processes at the same time. So it's like, it's not a different single pieces in this puzzle, but a whole soup of problems that we have in our body that culminates with these worse health
question
parameters
about the depression.
Folks.
Does your study show that the depression your subjects had, the people who participated in the study, was it long-term, maybe lifelong, or was it late in life onset depression? Were you able to determine that?
Yes. It happens in both situations, those with lifelong depression and also those who have never been depressed lifetime and happen to be depressed when they grew older. So independent of when you started having your depression,
the problem is the same.
The problem is the same.
And you did mention inflammation. Inflammation is of great interest to me, as it is to a lot of people, because it does seem to play a significant part in a lot of very common health issues, people of all ages, not just people who are older, but specifically can contribute to accelerated aging. So is there anything you can tell us more about inflammation as it relates to everything that you studied?
Exactly. Inflammation, it's one of the pieces of what we call SASP, the senescent associated secretory phenotype. And actually it is one of the most important or one of the most prominent features of the SASP. So few studies before, and even that I conducted before this one, we had shown that the inflammation, mortality, and other showed mortality in other groups of diseases like diabetes or cardiovascular disease. But the difference from our approach is that we not only measured inflammation per se, but we measured other processes like oxidative stress, mitochondrial function, sensitivity to insulin, or nutrient sensing processes that are no less relevant than inflammation, but they get like a little bit less media or even interest from us academics. That and what I did is to measure them all together. And that was the biggest. And the effect of all of these features together, they are stronger than each component. And JAMA journal, that they work better together than as individual parts to understand the depression and its outcomes. So that's the biggest difference. The inflammation, it's extremely important in older adults in different diseases of aging, but it's only one part of the puzzle, that it's far broader and deeper than that. That's our take and one of the messages of our study.
So I did read a summary of your study in Science Daily, and it said that you and your team were surprised, that's the exact quote, that the severity of a person's depression was unrelated to their level of accelerated aging. So, does this mean that any degree of depression will speed up the aging process?
Unfortunately, yes. And we tend to think of the more severe the case is, the worse the biological problems that we have, or the worse the consequences. And that's not always true. And in the case of depression in our study, we clearly show that we couldn't see a relationship between depression and the severity of these changes. But any level of depression is problematic. On one hand, this calls the attention that we cannot neglect mild depressive symptoms, or we can just try to just sweep them under the rug. I can deal with that later, because though the symptoms are not very severe, the consequences, what you're sweeping under the rug, it's bad. It's causing your problems to your body, to your brain health, to your general health, to your cardiovascular health. For me, that's a very important message. It's all too late in many aspects.
Yes, this is true. What other research is going on right now, either from your lab and your team or other teams around the world, really, that's being conducted to see how this information is used to combat depression and also accelerated aging and, its impact on aging?
There is lots of research across the globe. Particularly in my lab now with some collaborators, we are trying to intervene on these changes, on the aging changes, to see two things. First, can we improve depression in older adults if we improve these changes in the biology of aging? Second is that by improving these changes in biology of aging, can we improve general health and brain health in this subject? And for that, we are starting to use a class of drugs it's called senolytics. It is like a very broad class of drugs but the basic aim is to kill senescent cells, or to eliminate
senescent cells.
The senescent cells. It goes there and it specifically eliminates senescent cells while preserving the healthy cells in the body. And it's still planning. We are still not recruiting participants at this time, but we are very hopeful that we can really improve not only the depression outcomes, but also the health outcomes in these individuals. There are lots of studies trying to investigate these senescence changes in Alzheimer's disease, in cognition in general, can improve. And maybe one of the reasons why people who exercise or do mindfulness or other interventions that reduces the stress and improves, psychological well-being and depression, can have a positive effect on health. And we know that they have positive effects on health. And our hypothesis is that it is because it improves the biology of aging. So actually, this second study, it's ongoing in the lab. We are ready. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have something out already. I'm very hopeful. And so far, the results are looking good. So it's look promising. Oh, of course, will be my pleasure.
Oh, I would love to have you come back on when the results are out to talk about that study. And also, I have a question. This is also intriguing to me. I always like to know cause and effect, if possible. And I understand, how we have to look at all of these components together, as you pointed out several times. But do we know if someone became depressed later in life, it's because they started to have some of these health issues? Like maybe they started to have diabetes or cardiovascular issues or some cognitive functioning issues, and then that caused them to feel hopeless and depressed? Or do we know which way, or could it be either way?
It can be both ways. We have very robust data outside, already published for many years now, showing that being depressed increases your risk of having many diseases of aging, like diabetes, dementia, cardiovascular diseases. And the opposite is true also. Those subjects with these problems, they also have a higher risk of having or presenting depressive symptoms in the future.
It's like a vicious cycle. I mean, really.
And probably it is a vicious cycle.
It really is.
For example, having depression and diabetes make your treatment response for either diabetes or depression worse. Using the same drugs, the same medication, and taking the medication, it's not, they are not taking the medication, they are not doing this, or they are doing something different. No, the same medication for either depression or diabetes or hypertension or dementia, and they do worse if they have depression. Or they do worse on the medical treatment side, and they do worse on the depression treatment side if they have diabetes. So the question of our lab was always this curiosity, why this is going on? And after a while, we just did our research findings over the past 10 years or 15 years maybe led us to start investigating the biology of aging, because the common denominator of many of these conditions are we are aging faster because of this medical problem. So shouldn't it be also the common denominator of why the people of depression, they do worse over time, health-wise, on the world, like to systemic health or brain health? So that's where we, all the findings and our results in the lab led us to start thinking about this problem.
Oh, it's just also fascinating. And taking all this information for everyone who's listening in now, it's frightening because you want to live a good, healthy life. You want to have a good health span, hopefully a nice long lifespan. And, we want to do everything we can to make sure that we can achieve that. But so what can people do right now for themselves, and possibly even when maybe they're caring for aging parents or loved ones, to mitigate the effects of depression on aging and our overall health? I mean, you mentioned medication, certainly if needed. Not everyone needs it, but if needed, of course. And you mentioned my number one favorite thing, which I think is like kind of the end all and be all of everything, exercise. Which there are studies out there, as you said, that show that exercising, moving your body a lot, can mitigate the risks of a lot of things, including depression. So what else can we all be taking away from this? What can we do?
The first and foremost is to take care. If you have depression, don't procrastinate. Look for help. As you mentioned, some people need medication. Some people don't need medication. And the most important of all is to get treated, to see, to come back to a non-depressed state. This is the most important, the critical aspect of it. Okay? So look for help for depression. Simple things. And, like exercise, and it has to be in the gym, not necessarily. Move your body, as you mentioned. Do the 6,000, 10,000 steps. It can never come to an agreement.
There's always new studies coming out, right?
It's and tomorrow. But moving yourself, keeping yourself physically active, it's one of the most powerful anti-aging interventions that we have. Second, no, we mentioned about mindfulness. Every situation, every intervention, or every activity that you can reduce stress is beneficial. Diet,
Like you mentioned mindfulness
yeah,
too. Very,
yeah.
very important.
hmm Diet,
Diet.
having a good diet. It's again, you don't need to be like do every day the Mediterranean, but don't forget to reduce red meat, increase the amount of fish, avoid processed food. There is no secret here as
No.
well.
Unless you're living under a
And
rock. You already know this, everyone.
yes, yeah. So it's very simple. There is no, of course, I am not saying that you should be, like. Today I ate a hamburger. No, and I will punish myself. No, but try exercising and dieting. But weight itself, it's a silent killer. Obesity, it's a silent killer. It's probably the biggest one, and it's taking over on tobacco. It's smoking. If you smoke, stop smoking. Okay, but there is something
Yes.
here that we tend not to talk about. Keep yourself socially active. Social isolation, loneliness, has become one of the most important pro-aging factors that we are not paying attention to that. I think that the COVID pandemic and all the negative experience of isolation, it will bring this up, over the next years, the negative consequence. But we know even before COVID how negative and deleterious to us, okay? And there is no app that will kill isolation, that will kill loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
It's the simplest treatment possible. Talk to people, interact with people. That's one of the most powerful anti-aging, as powerful as exercise, dieting, taking care of your physical health, taking care of your mood. It's taking care of your social life.
It's so very important. And, I've been following the Blue Zones initiative for years. And
Mm-hmm.
that is one of the most important aspects. Of course, moving your body, diet,
Mm-hmm.
everything else that you mentioned. But they really have played up considerably the idea of maintaining those social connections, especially as you get older. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, as a
It's
result of this study and all of your studies really, but this one in particular, have you personally changed anything that you do as a result?
every day that I go back and have data analyzed in the lab, so what I'm doing wrong with my life. So yes, I changed many things over time, like exercising more, trying to keep my weight under a good check. As we grow old, we know the difficulty. It becomes more difficult to really lose
Mm-hmm.
weight.
Oh, yeah. I talk about it a lot on
Because
the
it's
show.
natural. Yeah, because we naturally change our metabolism, and it's not wrong or it's not pathological, but it's a true fact. So, trying to keep up, at least exercise more, having some not only like muscle mass, try to increase muscle mass. It's extremely important to general health, balance, and joint health, bone health. Our bones need our muscles to regenerate. It needs that tension that the muscles, strong muscles, bring it to the bones. Over the past few years, I changed a few things, trying to socialize more, be more social. Of course, trying to engage more in social activities. So I try to. It really taught me
Mm-hmm.
that I can do many things that are simple, zero cost, or no additional cost beyond what I need. It's not
No.
expensive. What is expensive is to buy medicine,
Yes.
to
Yes. Thank you for pointing
do,
that out.
that's far more expensive than doing something else. Going to a social activity that most of the time
Yes.
free.
Yes.
No, doing exercise, I don't go to a park. I can have a bike and walk, ride my bike.
You can go down on the floor and do 20 push-ups.
We can do many things that are free of cost.
Yes.
That are
all
free of
true.
cost. That
all
can
true.
have. It's very powerful to make us live better, healthier, and extend not our lifespan only, but our health span. That it's a different concept.
Yes.
So in the U.S. and in developed country, we extended our lifespan. However, we are not extending our health span. So we are living more years with disability than we should.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out too.
It's a paradox of the developing society. Nowadays, we live more. We can easily reach 80, 85, 90 years old today. So, but we might be living these extra years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And possibly quite dependent on others,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly even no longer having the mobility that we once had. I mean, I think as a country, we can both acknowledge that we're more focused on fixing things than preventing things. And I'm hoping in my lifetime this will start to shift and change. In my own little way, I'm trying to do that, always encouraging people to do everything that you listed, every single thing of every one of those. Oh, one thing we didn't mention, which I want to make sure gets mentioned, and that's the importance of sleep in all of this. Super important.
Absolutely.
Very interesting to me personally. When I wrote my first book that came out in 2010, of course I talked about sleep, but it was almost in passing reference to it. Whereas in my last book, there was a whole chapter and a very long, detailed one focused on sleep, because since then, there has been so much new information that's come out about the importance of sleep and the quality of sleep and what it can do to the brain, the heart, even your weight, your mood, really. Connected to depression.
With, one of the most neglected health variables that we in medicine. If you go to most physicians, they rarely will ask, "How are you sleeping?" They will rarely try to bring up, who was the last time that which physician that I went to that asked me, or spent some time asking to me about sleep. It is one, and even me, I will blame myself here. I spoke about many things.
Nope.
Even brought up something that it's also neglected, but it's gaining more better moment, like social isolation, loneliness, lack of social connectedness. But I forgot about sleep. And surprisingly enough, I have a grant that is studying the same markers in the sleep that it's about to end now, that we are having analyzing the results too, and I forgot about it. So just because it's not on our as priority, it's not prioritized by our subconscious processes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. It's not on it's like in the periphery somewhere still, when we need to bring it into focus, because as you know, how critical it is. I know I've made it a priority since I've learned so much more about it. And that, I'm very focused on aging better. That's what I do. And I measure everything. I wear my Apple Watch to sleep, and I see how much REM I got and how much deep sleep I got. And I'm working really hard to make sure my quality is better and that I get more of it.
Sleep is very important.
Very, very important.
Health or brain health. It's linked with dementia risk. It's linked with depression risk. It's linked to many negative, higher mortality, death risk if you don't sleep well. Even if you are healthy, your odds of dying is bigger than someone who who sleeps better. So it is a very important health variable that we tend to forget about it and neglect.
Absolutely. We'll never, never, never forget about sleep ever again when we talk, right? Ever again. No.
Absolutely. I made it. I made it as my internal promise,
Yay.
and I do like to take care of my sleep. I do my Apple Watch, I do my REM sleep, my deep sleep. See if the temperature is going down enough, it's not going up. Those things that we know that are parameters that tells us that you're really receiving all the benefits of sleeping. Because some people, there is a difference between quality of sleep and total sleep pattern. You may be sleeping enough, but taking medications that change the sleep architecture, and you don't have the whole benefit of sleep. And always spoke about exercise, reducing stress, mindfulness, being active, help inducing
a really, really, really good sleep. And, what's fascinating me, I'm a visual thinker. And so I could picture the toxins in your brain literally being swept out as you're in deep sleep. And when I understood that, I realized how important it is. And again, the connection to what we're talking about today, the connection to depression and trying to avoid depression, especially later in life, to stop that vicious cycle. So, yay sleep.
Sleep is very important. I agree.
So, Dr. Denise, okay, I think I said it right. Thank you so much. I'm going to practice it because you'll be back on and I'm going to perfect it. I'm going to perfect it for when you come back. Thank you so much for coming on talking about your new study. I really, really appreciate it. I'm honored because I know it just came out. You're super busy. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to having you back on the show, talk about the next study.
Anytime. It was a pleasure. I will be thrilled and honored to be invited again. There's always something going on, new in the lab and new publications getting out on this area that I find it fascinating. And hopefully if we can find ways of helping, at least changing people's mind about depression, how toxic it is to our organism, to our brain, to our health. And it's just not something that it's, you can sweep below the rug, and put it aside and take care of it that later in life. I will consider my mission accomplished as a professional.
Thank you so much. Thank you for reminding everyone that to not ignore the symptoms of depression, and certainly don't be embarrassed by symptoms of depression, but get the help, get the treatment that you need.
Yes, it is a disease. It's a disease like diabetes, hypertension, and many others that we treat it naturally. It's not your fault. It can happen to anyone. Okay? So look for help always.
And you just keep doing the good work that you're doing, Doctor. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay? Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Barbara.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Gruff Talk, please do 2 things. First, share it with all your friends and family, and subscribe to Gruff Talk wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Until next time, remember this: we can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.